I was absolutely on the knife edge between life and death.
Wow.
I subsequently found out I'd lost over half my body's blood. Approaching that is where people tend to die. Those 2 weeks are by a country mile the hardest, most horrible, emotionally bleak, horrible thing I've ever been through. It's not determination that will pick you up and go again. It's dreaming the impossible.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lights, Camera, Combat podcast. The podcast where we talk to incredible people with inspirational stories from a life in connection to combat and shine a light on it. Over the course of this series, I'm sitting down with veterans turned TV presenters, incredible athletes, world record holders, and even World War II veterans to help me and hopefully you find the light at the end of any tunnel. Today I'm sitting down for part 2 of my conversation with 4-time world record holder Lee Spencer. Lee was a Royal Marine for over 2 decades before a life-changing injury turned everything upside down. He then learnt how to reframe his mind and the importance of dreaming the impossible, which led him to break 4 world records, including being the only disabled person to hold a record for an endurance event. This is an unbelievable conversation, and if you haven't already listened to part 1, go back now and watch the previous episode on the channel, because it is an incredible conversation that rolls into this unbelievable chat that we've had over 55 minutes talking about breaking world records, digging deep and helping you achieve your dreams. So, wherever you are and however you listen, sit back and enjoy this episode of Lights, Camera, Combat. So you did all this active service and all these tours and all the duty as a Royal Marine and everything else that came with that. And then you have a life-changing accident. Perhaps not in the way that people might expect when they hear of a man who spent such a long time in the military. What happened that day?
I was returning to work after Christmas leave. I left about 7 o'clock. I got used to driving through the night and leaving late, so I used to have to go around the M25. So I used to leave till late, get into work, and about midnight on the M3, just before it joins the M25, I come across a car that had crashed into the central reservation. I immediately pulled over, made sure there were people who were out of the vehicle. It was 2 guys and a very heavily pregnant woman. And another car crashed into that one with such force its gearbox came flying out. Cool. Yeah, so I was hit by an engine and gearbox complete. Took me right leg off and completely dislocated my left leg.
It took it off?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of hanging on by sinew, but I looked at it and went, well, that's gone.
Wow.
But I could see I was bleeding to death. And I knew I had between 7 and 12 minutes to stop the bleeding. Luckily, a Rastafarian from Hackney called Frank and his daughter Zanelli came along, and I managed. Frank tried to get a tourniquet on with his belt, couldn't get it on, couldn't get it tight enough, and I got Zanelli, excuse me, to stand on me femoral, stand on me groin, and that shut down. And I'm sort of skimming over this quite quickly, but I absolutely, by the time they'd come down, they came along. By the time Frank came along, I was absolutely on the knife edge between life and death.
Wow.
I subsequently found out I'd lost over half my body's blood. Approaching that is where people tend to die.
Cool. Wow.
So,
and
that was absolutely true.
And by the sounds of how you managed to kind of work out the state that you were in, that was because of the job that you'd done and the stuff that...
I knew, looking at it, all right, there's a lot of bleeding there. From basic medical training. I need to get a tourniquet on. I hadn't been in Afghan for 2 years when this happened. And when it happened, when I saw my left leg was dislocated, I shouted, "Medic!" And as I shouted it, I remember thinking, where did that come from? I hadn't been in Afghan for 2 years. And then my set thought was, why are you shouting that? No one's going to understand that.
Yeah.
The other thing is that every time you went on the ground in Afghan, you kind of thought that this might happen.
Yeah.
And you do it on a subconscious level where you just make peace with it and get on. And I think that was still in me. So when it happened, I know this sounds weird, but it was like that. Oh, leg's gone. Right, I've got to stop the bleed.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I
100%.
I don't think. So that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been to Afghan.
So this incident happens, and you've touched on sort of the way that people might recognise it and that might look at it. For you, was there any part of the recovery process where you did think, and you mention, when you go to tour, you make peace with that, and you become a soldier with the knowledge that could be an outcome?
No, I think that was peculiar to Afghanistan because it was so common.
Yeah.
Whenever you walked out, there was I remember going out. Part of my job revolved around going and seeing some Afghans that were outside of the camp, but it was safe to walk there, or I thought it was. And bloke I took over from, he's called Harry, Northern Irish lad, brilliant guy, I loved it a bit. He used to carry a pistol in a holster. I didn't. I thought if I ever need my pistol, I want them to know the first time that I've got one is when I'm chewing it. It's a different way of approaching it.
Yeah.
So I didn't openly carry one, but I carried it covertly.
Yeah.
And I walked over, and I was just in t-shirt and shorts, which was normal. I'm not like, being some kind of maverick lunatic. Hard to explain, but within the circumstances of what I was doing, that was normal.
Yeah.
And okay. Yeah, I weren't being an arsehole.
Yeah.
And there was a building opposite, and there'd been this op to clear, and that's the first time I realised, I was like, bloody hell, that's like right up against the main gate of Fob Jackson, which is the main base in Sangin. And you kind of, it becomes almost blasé, like you'll be on patrol. The reason I'll go back, I haven't quite finished, and the reason I sort of walked in and said hello, because I saw a couple of lads that I knew, walked over, and I said, yeah, just make sure you go around that way, then marked it with the IEDs are there and there. I was like, really? Right outside? And you kind of just become blasé about it.
Yeah.
And actually a friend of mine, Staff Sergeant Dan Fedder, who's USMC, got quite friendly with him. He was even saying it. He got blown up 12 metres from the front gate. Just literally could have spat.
Wow.
Yeah. It really affected me. Anyway, even like you'd be out of patrol and the guy in front of you, like the Valen, the metal detector, would pick up something, and normally it might be just a bag of screws that have been buried in it, but it could also, by the time there were IEDs, and you just don't walk around that.
So, yeah.
You go, oh, okay, you just walk around, it just becomes part of your normal, and I remember I bumped into this lad who was, he was a Lance Corporal, and I was his troop sergeant quite a few years before. We bumped into each other in this compound. I was like, oh, what are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. I'm part of this troop. I was like, oh. We had a good old chat, and there was this vine. I was wearing, like, the grapes were absolutely essence, so sweet juice, and you sat there eating. Turns out we were stood on, like, almost a ton of, no, maybe a couple of 100 kilos of explosives.
Wow.
They basically wired up a compound, hoping that we'd sort of on a clearance go into it, and then get a whole troop.
Wow.
And but we'd helicoptered over and sort of started the clearance operation from the south, moving north, and all of their like wires were going south, hoping that we'd go from the north, moving southwards. And they found, and walking out of them, I think I might even have been Dan Fedder, like tripped over a wire in a ditch and went, followed it back, and that's when they discovered it.
Wow.
And we were just sat there eating, you know.
It's great.
Yeah, but that's how normal it was, and that, you know.
And do you think, but before we sort of move into the later stage of life, that were there any mental moments for you where you would think this was such the norm, you prepared yourself in Afghan that this could be a possibility, and then you lost your leg in the way that you did? Was there ever a challenge overcoming sort of the mental struggles of it, or did you just?
No.
So what was the recovery like?
I woke up the next morning in hospital. I actually fought my way out of a coma 3 times.
Yeah.
And there's a story to that as well. It's look at the clock, we'll be here for a week. But I woke up, and the first thing I thought was, I'm alive. Nurse, a doctor came in, surgeon, and said, look, I'm really sorry you've lost your leg. No memory of this. So I was high on drugs, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I was like, I apparently said, I'd be surprised if he was still there. I was just glad to be alive.
Yeah. So you at this point, which is...
Sorry, I didn't go into it really in a lot of detail, but I fought my hardest to stay alive on the side of that road. And I know how close I came. I know.
Is there a way that
So when I did wake up in hospital, I was just like,
yeah,
I'd done it.
Is there a way that you can articulate the feeling of having to fight against death?
Yeah, it's all consuming. I after it happened, it was in the newspaper, and it was Good Samaritan Royal Marine loses leg helping others on side of the road. And that was in the news the next morning, and I got inundated by loads of messages, and people were calling me a hero, and I really, really struggled. There was something else going on as well. I woke up and I was going at 1,000 miles an hour. All the adrenaline from the night before was still going through me, and it weakened. So I woke up on the Monday evening, going into Tuesday. This was Sunday night, Monday morning. It happened about midnight. So in a coma, induced coma, fought my way out of it. And it was just coursing through me, and I couldn't come down. And over the next weekend, I was getting inundated by messages saying what a hero I was. And I remembered back to when it happened, and when the first responder went past. I remember laying there. We got a Rastafarian called Frank tying his belt round my leg. We've got his daughter stood on my femoral artery. And there was a group down there because all the traffic had backed up. And someone went, blue lights going on the other side of the carriageway going. And they went, there's the ambulance, it's the police. And I went, it's the first responder. And I thought, right, junction's about 3 minutes that
Wow.
way. 6 minutes. And that's the first time I thought, I've got a chance here. Bloke gets this first responder. First thing he does is he gets out of the vehicle and he goes, And I went, right, I've got a catastrophic bleed. I need a tourniquet. And he went, whoa, I've got to put my luminous vest on. And I went, bit me lip. I watched him put it on almost in slow motion.
Don't worry, I might just die if you don't do it.
Yeah. Honestly. And then he turns around and I goes, right, got a catastrophic bleed, right leg. I need to talk. He went, well, I've got to do a triage. And that's when, that's the first time I thought there might be someone else injured. Hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, if there's anyone else injured worse than me, and he goes to them first, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Right? And I probably would have been.
Yeah.
I wasn't panicking. Was very, very calm. Had control of the situation. And I knew if he went to someone else, and I was overwhelmed with a sense of self-preservation. And if there was anyone else, I would have made sure that I got seen to first.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed of that.
Yeah.
As it turns out, there was no one else. Someone went there, and I said to him, I goes, catastrophic bleed is a priority in any, that's, if you triage in anyone, catastrophic bleed's first thing you go to.
Yeah.
So I wasn't lying.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, no.
And I was literally on the edge.
On the edge. So you...
But afterwards, this is what ties into what you're saying.
Yeah.
When people were telling me I was a hero, I remembered that selfishness.
Yeah.
And it really, really hurt me. And I put this on the Saturday, if it was a Saturday, I put this thing on Facebook saying everybody's calling me a hero. Well, I'm not. And look, the actual circumstances of me stopping to help, I don't know anyone who could have driven past that. You just couldn't.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't a hero for stopping. And it really, I put all this down. And I worked with an American human guy in Sangit called Corey. And we got quite close, obviously, as we worked together. And he was out in San Diego. This is how many years? 4 years after we worked together. He put this message on, right? Basically, was he belly aching? I knew you'd be belly aching about the hero word. And he put something on. I read it. And when I read it, all this emotion and all of the adrenaline, I'd been like fired on. I hadn't come down. I was still hyper for a week, and it absolutely drained me, because I was absolutely exhausted from it. And it all just washed out of me in that one moment, yeah.
So, I really want to talk about, because as you say, I feel like we could probably be here a fortnight and still have more things to talk about. But
and some of the things I'm saying are true.
I know, unbelievable, isn't it? It really is crazy. And so you go from this position, from fully staring death in the face. There's no two ways about that. And then you decide to, as we are here now, break 4 world records.
Yeah, it didn't quite happen like that.
Talk me through how it happened and how it all came about.
Right. Realistically, in 2004, I was in the Commando display team and I organised the end of season piss up. And I was in a bar in Poole in Dorset talking to a former Royal Marine who then ran a pub. And he had a cellar bar and it was doing perfect. And on the wall was this odd looking boat. And we was chatting, going through how much it would cost, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what's that boat? And he went, oh, it's the boat I tried to row the Atlantic with. And I went, what? Row the Atlantic? I couldn't believe it. Didn't even know that was a thing. Anyway, never thought about it again. Lose me leg. And in the first admission at Headley Court, the guy who was in the bed opposite me was called Cal Voice. And a double amputee. And had a big beard. And I rock up in a wheelchair. And I says, oh, what's with the beard? And he says, I've just come back from rowing the Atlantic. It's like, what? And I spent like the next 2 weeks asking every aspect of the road, Crosswood Road to recovery. And there was 2 wounded, 2 disabled amputee servicemen, 2 able-bodied. So, and me and Cal became, our admissions at Headley Court overlapped a lot, so we became quite friendly. And then I got, at the end of my first year as an amputee, kind of wondering what I was going to do. I had no idea. I was trying a phased return at work, see if I could go back to work. I didn't know. And I got an email asking for volunteers to put together the world's first all-amputee crew. Applied, ended up part of the team, and in 2015, December 2015, so less than 2 years after losing my leg, I was in a little boat with 3 other amputees. We had 3 legs between the 4 of us as we rowed out of Saint Sebastian, which is in La Gomera, one of the smaller Canary Islands. We rowed 46 days later via the strongest Atlantic hurricane, January Atlantic hurricane for 61 years, Hurricane Alex. 46 days later we rowed into English Harbour in Antigua, and the record books. I then saw an opportunity. I thought, right, I know how to, I've rowed the Atlantic, so I know the way.
Yeah.
I've come to the end of really my rehab. I ain't going to get any better. And I reckoned on the Marines still paying me for another 18 months, a year to 18 months before they got fed up and kicked me out. And so I thought I could work full time on it. So I thought I'd have a go at rowing solo. So I started putting it together. Then on HMS Victory in Portsmouth, I had a very drunken conversation with a general called Ed Davies, who happened to be the governor of Gibraltar. And he said, why don't you row from Gibraltar through the Straits and out and across? And I thought, wow. And then I noticed that there was a record that was the third person in history to row from mainland Europe to mainland South America.
Yeah.
It's obviously a lot longer. There's a Norwegian called Steinhoff, and he rowed in 2002. He was the third person to do it. He was also two people before him, and he was the fastest. So he had the record. It was 96 days, 12 hours, 45 minutes. So I thought, well, I'll try to beat that record. Ended up not being able to get a weather window to allow me to row through the Straits. I went from Portugal instead. After a couple of false stars, one where my mum died 3 days before I was due to set off. But I ended up rowing across the Atlantic in 2019, and I beat the able-bodied record from going from, so I beat Steinhoff's record. I was the 4th person in history to do it, and the fastest by 36 days. So I've done it in 60 days, 16 hours, 6 minutes. And I believe I am the world's only physically disabled person to break and hold a world record in a physical endurance event.
It's unbelievable. It really is. And to talk about challenges and things to overcome, and I said right at the beginning when we were talking about the early days, sort of touching on your mum, and you've just done it there. What you're ready to do this, and then obviously that tragic moment occurs. What was some of the impact on? And I'm sure, am I right in saying that it pushed you back a year?
Yeah.
In doing that? What did that do for you? Not only to lose your mum, but also to then, you've prepared for all of this, and then the setback comes of a year to be able to do it again.
A lot of people, I had a conversation with some of the people who were involved in it, and one of them said, well, you wasn't ready, if you're going to do this again. He was going to be my weather router, and And I think he articulated what a lot of people were thinking. He said, I looked into your eyes, you weren't ready. I was like, basically, I got a phone call from my sister to say, like, your mum's really, really bad. And the word she used was, the specialist said there's nothing they could do for her except make her as comfortable as they can to the end. They're the words I got. You obviously drop everything, jump on the plane and get. But whilst I was that afternoon, got a first flight, we could get back from, we had to go to Spain. And mum died whilst she was in the air. So, and I remember, I spoke to this bloke, like, you know, you grieve, you get on with it, you bury, then you get on with life. And I said, right, ready to go, we're going next year. And he says, well, I don't know. I think you need to come and do this course. I think he was trying to get some money out of me to try and get me to do some bizarre course. He said, you wasn't ready for... So that me... Sorry, I'm going to swear. Your fucking mother was on her literally on her deathbed. I'd spent 2 years putting this together. I worked myself. I was working 17, 18 hour days, 7 days a week to get that boat to the start line.
Yeah.
I was absolutely up. I was looking forward to getting in a boat and rowing it across the Atlantic to get some bloody rest.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that flippantly.
Yeah.
And but there was a lot of people who dropped out. And they were all nice about it, and they all gave their excuses, but I know that they thought that I'd somehow balled it, even though you said, my mum died.
Yeah.
What could I do?
Yeah, 100%.
But I think, I don't know. I don't know if I might be wrong, but I certainly felt that, yeah.
What were some of the struggles that you had to overcome doing it? I'm sure there were difficult moments in those 60 days.
Physically rowing.
Yeah, physically, mentally.
Right, mentally, I'm quite needy. I'm a people person. I love being around people. I love company. I thought I'd struggle on my own. And surprisingly, I was okay with it. Didn't bother me at all. Be completely on my own. Which was a surprise because I thought I would. The biggest thing was fear. In the middle of the Atlantic, I got hit by these huge waves. And the difference between being in a hurricane in a rowing boat in the middle of the Atlantic, which is quite a thing to say, isn't it? Yeah, not a lot of people who can say that. But like a hurricane twists, and over a 24-hour period, and then it's gone. Yeah. But the waves kind of change direction. And they're quite dirty and choppy because of that. Now I had it was perfect rain conditions, perfect, like the trade winds were just constant, banging out, 15, 20, 25 knot winds. So the waves were quite big, but they were quite clean, you know. And then I had this period in the middle, bang in the middle. And bearing in mind that there were times in the middle of the Atlantic where the closest humans to me were on the International Space Station, and there's a very real chance that, you know, on the planet, how many are there? 7 billion of us? Yeah. Out of 7 billion people, there's a chance that I could have been the most isolated human on the planet. Yeah. That affects you. But then there was this period of about 5 days when the winds just picked up. So all they did, they weren't mad. I think they were blowing about 35 knots, gusting 40. Okay, which is quite windy.
That's strong.
But it's not a hurricane. Yeah. You know. But because it had been constant from the same direction, it turned those huge waves that had built, that were quite clean and not that angry, into this huge, angry, monstrous waves. And it was, I spent 5 days absolutely petrified. Wow. I had to come up with a coping mechanism for dealing with it because I was sleeping. Distraction. So I'd save every bit of morale I had, whether that was food, whether that was my favourite tunes, whether that was listening to audio books and get to that bit, you know, if you was reading an actual book, it'd be like a page turner at the end, stop it. And only ever listening to it when the fear was unbearable. It didn't take the fear away, but it took the edge off it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep, I was going downhill. And in fact, I noticed after that 5-day period, wind settled down and the waves settled down, body was falling apart a bit. You have to, after every rowing session. So I was rowing 2 hours on, 1 hour off during the day, and I went the 2 on 2 off at night with a 4-hour off period from 2 till 6. So it's 12 hours rowing, 12 hours off. And you wipe the salt off you every rowing session, because the salt builds up, turns into crystals. The crystals cut into the skin, you start getting sores.
Yeah.
So at the end of that period, I'd neglected to kind of really look after myself. I was going downhill really fast. So that was really difficult period. But by far the hardest part of that row was the last 2 weeks. With 2 weeks to go, I hit the wall physically, and then the mental gymnastics I'd have to go through to get out and row meant that right on the turn of physical exhaustion was mental exhaustion, and then emotional exhaustion.
Yeah.
And for 2 weeks I was just in despair. It's the only word I've got for it. It's the hardest.
How did you get through?
2 things. One is you take it step by step. You don't look at what you got left. You just get through that next rowing session. Once I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out and row. Not because I was scared, I just couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, right, I'm going to count to 10. I counted to 10 and I couldn't move. Or I counted to 10 again. You couldn't move.
Yeah.
I'd done that for 40 minutes. It took me 40 minutes. Do you want me to stop or?
No, you can keep talking because the audio will still pick up.
Took me 40 minutes. That's how hard it was to get out and row. And the way I looked at it is, you just got to do it 2 hours at a time. Just look at that rowing session by, step by step, breaking it up. But the other one was another really hard thing, was not letting lies you tell yourself settle. So I kept telling myself, if I don't row this session, if I rest, then I'm going to be so much stronger. I'll make that. But that's a lie. Once that 2 hour rowing session's gone, it's gone forever. And the reason it was crucial, I couldn't rest, I couldn't just stop, was coming in to South America. There's this current that runs up the coast. It's called the Southern Equatorial Current. And it runs so strong that we had to drop 100 miles south to use it to come up to the finish point. So that meant if I stopped rowing, that current would just push me north and I'd miss the finish point and I wouldn't. And actually there wasn't anywhere else I could finish. It was just all mangrove swamp north of where I came in. So you tell yourself, you lie and you think, well, if I rest, I'll make the time up. And what done it is going back to training. You remember I said that I looked around and thought I'm one of the weaker ones in the troop. Whenever anyone left, they were always stronger and fitter than me. And I was always astonished. Why has he left? They'd always say the same thing, it's not for me. And I knew that was a lie, because it was for them. You can't just join the Marines, you can't just go in the quiz and say, I want to join the Marines. In you go.
Yeah.
You have to go through a process, and it's quite hard and difficult. So it has to be for you. You can't just join on a whim. So it was for them. And how do they know it's not for them? Because it's training. It isn't the Marines. It's the hurdle you have to get over to be the Marines. So it was just a blatant lie.
Yeah.
But they all said the same thing, and it always astonished me that they could lie to themselves. And it was remembering those lies meant that the lies I was telling myself, that if I rested, it would be better, it stopped them from landing.
Yeah.
So that's how I carried on going. And I can't emphasise enough. I'm going to make a statement, right, that I will nail to the wall. I know what I'm saying. I understand what it means. And it is, I'm still saying it is 100% true. Those 2 weeks are by a country mile the hardest, most horrible, emotionally bleak, horrible thing I've ever been through, with the possible exception of some of the things that happened to me when I was a small child.
So the end point of that, you achieve this, you get the record, is a massive success. And I've heard you talk before about how that finish point of success is what you see, is what people see, but the process of getting there is maybe made up of...
Well, that finish point, I was utterly empty.
Yeah.
The only way I can describe it is I had no emotion. When I rode in, it was like, "Hey," it was only a few people there.
Yeah.
And I had nothing. I wasn't relieved. I wasn't happy.
Drained.
I wasn't tired.
Yeah.
I mean, empty of, I wasn't drained.
Yeah.
I was
Had nothing.
empty from every emotion.
Yeah.
And it that last 2 weeks was so bleak. It took me about 3 months before I could think about the Bro in a positive way.
Wow.
It affected me that bad.
Yeah. So you speak about failures and the importance of failures. Why do you believe, and I completely sort of in synergy with the way that you think, why do you believe that failures are so important and why they play such a vital role for reaching that end goal, which might only be a marginal success in hindsight?
I'm trying to think how to answer that the quickest and easiest way, because that's a big subject. The talk about that well, mentioned it before. You don't know what you're capable of. Half the people listening to this are physically more capable than me. They have that same well of potential in them, and they could go, every single one of them could go on and beat my record. Can't beat all of them because I was the first on a couple of them. But they can do that,
Yeah.
right? But why they won't is, one, they don't believe they can. And the first time, right, difference between determination and why determination is overrated. If I said run at that wall, one day you'll get through it, right? And you'd run at that wall, first time you did it, you would never do it again, okay? When does determination become stupidity, okay? But the bottom line of that is you'd never do it again because you don't believe you can, right? But that's where picking yourself up, you say people need to be more resilient. You say, well, if you don't believe you can do something, why would you pick yourself up and go again? Yeah. The key to it is to dream. Now, the difference between ambition and a dream, and ambition is something you believe you can achieve and you plan to do it. Have ambitions, they're amazing. But a dream is something you don't believe you can achieve.
Just slightly out of reach.
Not slightly, massively unattainable. Yeah. My impossible dream, after I was told you're not what we're looking for, was to be a Royal Marine.
Yeah.
Look how I ended up.
Yeah. So, if there's...
And the only way I ended up there is because that dream picked me up and I went again. Not determination. Yeah. Not determination. It was having a dream. And when I was told again, you're not what we're looking for, that picked me up and that's where I went again.
So if there's people out there listening that are wanting to make a change in their life or take that leap and maybe haven't
haven't quite tapped into maybe even realising or finding that dream for them or whatever it is, but they want to make a change that will improve their life, and maybe that they can then sort of take that step forward. What would your message be? What is the key to do it?
It's really simple. It's really, really simple. If you want to get good at press-ups, what would you do?
Practice, do loads of press-ups.
Right. If you want to get good at running, what would you do?
Keep going out for a run.
If you want to get good at picking yourself up after you fail, what would you do?
Keep failing.
It ain't rocket science.
What do you, if there's people out there that will be afraid to fail and will slip into that comfortable position of not having to push themselves out there to fail, how do you become somebody that isn't afraid to fail?
Right, no one likes failing, right? Every time I've failed in life, I have not gone, yay, another failure, another time to prove I'm resilient.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was devastated. I'm devastated every time I fail. I fail at everything. Okay, I failed at everything.
Yeah.
I failed my special duties course. I failed the shoot. I had to redo it. I had to redo the whole course.
Yeah.
Okay. I failed, and I could keep going back. At every point in the story we talked about, there's been a failure.
Yeah.
So what makes you go again? It's not determination.
What's that dream?
Like it's two things I would like people to understand. First one is, right, no one is born determined. Right, a determined mindset is something I get accused of having, and I haven't got one. Right, and it doesn't exist. Okay, right. Practice self-discipline. You want to get good at press-ups, you do press-ups. But you wouldn't go, right, I want to get good at press-ups, I'm now going to get down and do 1,000. You wouldn't do that. You do 10, then you do 20, then you do 30. If you want to get good at being determined, you practice self-discipline, but you start easy. And it's what they do in training in the Marines. Don't join the Marines and they go, right, we're going to go and do a 30 miler,
Yeah.
and you're just going to keep going because you're determined. It doesn't work that way. You start by making your bed and getting yourself up. I've never, ever, ever been woken up. From the day I started training, I was expecting doors to be kicked in, get up, blah, 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 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Didn't happen. They walked out and says, right, outside, 8 o'clock, ready to do this, and left us to get on with it. That's practicing self-discipline. It starts with making your bed, and it ends with having the determination, the self-discipline to keep going through the commando test when your body's telling you to stop. Right? Practice self-discipline. Start easy. That's how you become determination. No one's born determined. Everyone can become determined by practicing self-discipline. Simple. When you fail, it's not determination that will pick you up and go again. It's dreaming the impossible.
You had a dream from a child. Now, and if that dream, once you've served, if that dream was to become, setting these world records, whatever it is, if you've had a dream...
No, my dream was just to be a Royal Marine. My dream was to be a brave person.
So if you achieve your dream, what keeps you going after you've achieved it?
Understanding that you don't know what you're capable of. This sounds big-headed, but it is what it is. Right? I've led men in war. I was 24 years in the Marines. Right? I've led Royal Marines in war. I've operated undercover in the most dangerous place on God's earth. I've been in lots and lots of gun battles. I lost my leg. I then rode across the Atlantic twice. I've done it solo. I beat the able-body record by 36 days. I've been in the Guinness Book of Records twice. I still don't know where that point is, where your body says this far and no further.
Do you want to find it?
I think the older I'm getting closer to finding it, but I don't think that isn't me reaching it. I think that's probably it coming down and reaching me.
Yeah.
But the point is, no matter, I'm bang average. I'm physically bang average. I am not unusually determined. I'm not. I get accused of that all the time. People say, "Oh, you are." I'm not. I just know. I know I don't know what I'm capable of, right? So when I said to you about running at that wall, when does determination become stupidity, right? You wouldn't do it the second time because you know you wouldn't get through. Now here's the difference. If you know that you don't know what you're capable of, if you understand that you no idea what you're actually capable of, that knowledge will pick you up and go again. Right? It's never nice hitting the floor. No one likes failing. Okay? Don't embrace it. Try not to fail.
Yeah.
But you will.
Yeah.
And when you do, understand that if you understand that you don't know what you're capable of,
Yeah.
and if you have a dream, that's the purpose. You don't even have to believe it's achievable. But those two things together, they will... Right, let's go 3 things. Understanding you don't know what you're capable of, practicing self-discipline, right? And this is the key that binds it all together, is to have a dream. Have a dream. If you'd have said to me at 13 years of age, what's most likely to happen in 20 years' time, that you'd be a Royal Marines Commando or you'll have a lightsaber, I would have been astonished that lightsabers wouldn't have been invented. Having a lightsaber, absolutely, that's going to happen. Royal Marines Commando, never happen in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we wrap up, and
I'd still love a lightsaber, by the way.
I feel like we've got to be getting closer to that one. Then you can have both of them. Before we wrap up, so I've not taken up any more of your day. You now go into different places and you do these motivational talks and you help people maybe
a little bit of me dies every time you say motivational talks.
I know we spoke before we came on about the fact that you don't like that, but if it was being defined as maybe what you do, that might be, you know,
it is.
the Oxford
Right,
Dictionary
I'm
definition.
pretty limited on how I can earn a living.
Yeah.
And I love being centre of attention, so I love being up on a stage in front of people. Got no problems with that. I have a very uncomfortable relationship with standing up in front of people and saying, listen to me, I've got all the answers.
No, which makes perfect sense. I mean, you've done it in some incredible places, you know, seeing that you've been into England camps, in squad
the
camps
football
and
term. England senior men's, England senior women's, and
What's that?
Welsh senior
What
women's.
does that feel like to you? You can be stood there and, you know, with your Gareth Southgate and your Harry Kane and everyone else to tell your stories. I know you have this uncomfortable relationship with it, but what must that feel like? You know, as you say, someone who's a big football fan.
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre, actually. Pretty bizarre. Yeah, bizarre.
I'd assume.
A pinch yourself moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something that you're very proud of, I have no doubt.
Yeah. I got some really nice comments. Danny Rose, even though he's a Tottenham fan.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He said some really nice things about me in a press conference, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Which you're thinking, how has this happened?
Yeah, I can imagine, and you know, we've spent time talking about the
Shall I
records.
tell you how that's happened? Having a dream.
Yeah.
It really is. Honestly, that's not the most bizarre thing to happen to me.
What is?
The most bizarre thing to happen to me is I'm part of a team that are testing exercise equipment that's destined for the International Space Station. And I ended up on a 0G flight testing it
Wow.
with professors and NASA scientists genuine NASA scientist.
Jeez.
And it's not happened for a bit, but I was getting texts from people from ESA and phone calls. I was at a dinner with my wife's nephew, and so that I've just literally just got a text from NASA. I'm just going to go out and make a call. I left school with O-level art and no other qualifications.
That's the key to the dream, isn't it? It keeps you going up to this point. And in all of this, you've achieved everything that you've got. You've got the world records. I guess, from everything you've said now, what is next?
I just keep going. Things come up. Yesterday or the day before. No, yesterday I was asked twice about rowing again. Once round Britain, which I'm not going to do, so I ain't got the time. And the other one is just across the Irish Sea with a good friend, both good friends. I got the triathlon of Great Britain. I tried to do a triathlon. We swim the Channel, cycle Land's End to John O'Groats, and climb the 3 peaks in one big triathlon. Didn't get across the Channel. I've got that lined up again. The earliest I could get it rebooked, so there's only a few slots every year for the Channel, is this summer. So I'm training for that. Got Kilimanjaro with my daughter. That's more of a thing that I'd love to do. My daughter and my sister are doing that. I want to ski across the Hardangervidda, so I'm off to Sweden in a couple of weeks with Invictus on a Nordic cross-country skiing camp. We teach myself. I used to be a skiing instructor, so we teach myself cross-country skiing with a view to going across the Hardangervidda in Norway next year. Things happen. One thing, that's the other thing as well. Take things step by step. When I answered that email for the first physically disabled crew, I had no idea it'd end up here, but one thing leads on to the next, that leads on to the next. And it's about grabbing opportunities as well.
Yeah.
And you think about all the times, this isn't you, I'm saying this to whoever's listening, you think now about all the times in the past where something's come up and you thought, oh, and let it go. You didn't grab it. If you now, with the knowledge that you don't know what you're capable of, and knowing that I don't think I could do that, but I'm going to grab it anyway because some idiot on a podcast said I don't know what I'm capable of, might give this a go just to see if it's true. You've no idea what that one small action can take and where you'll end up.
Yeah.
From no qualifications, I ended up on the zero gravity flight with professors and NASA scientists testing equipment, floating, weightless. You've no idea where it will take you.
Yeah. And I must say, I'm doing a few fundraising missions, if you like, for Help for Heroes over the summer, and I will be utilising the stuff that you have spoken about to help, which, let's be honest, are marginal compared to what it is that you are doing and taking on, but the principles I will absolutely...
Always understand, always having the forefront of your mind that there's a 50% chance that you're physically more able than me.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, and look what you've done with it, which is absolutely unbelievable. We've touched on it multiple times, but as the last sort of question from me, in a sentence, in a message, what would it be to get everyone out there who's listening to just make the most of their lives?
God, that's a you put me on the spot there. I feel like I've got to come up with something profound.
No,
I can't sum it up in one sentence.
however it's easy to sum it up for you.
Life is so amazing. It's so wonderful. It's opportunity. It's opportunities. That's it. That's what life is. It's just a series of billions and billions and billions of opportunities. And it's just go and find them. Go and see. Be curious.
Yeah.
Go and see where it can take you. And grab those opportunities.
Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure, honestly. It's been a proper, you know, saying a life-changing conversation is going to sound like a real cliche thing to throw out there, but genuinely has been some of the stuff that you've said. It changes the way that you think and the perceptions on certain things, so it's really been awesome. As I said, one of the conversations I've been most excited to have, and it's lived up to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, Phil.
Thank you so much.